Hello, I'm attorney Paul Whalen from Afford Law. At Afford Law, we practice criminal and family law throughout Massachusetts. All of our fees are based on a sliding scale, which is based on your income. So that means the less you make, the less you pay. On today's episode, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about minimum mandatory sentences in criminal cases in Massachusetts. If you're convicted of certain crimes in Massachusetts, your punishment cannot be anything less than a minimum mandatory jail term. That means if you're found guilty or if you try to plea out to one of these charges, a judge cannot give you anything less than what is mandated under the statute. That means you can't plea out to a lesser charge unless the Commonwealth agrees to amend that charge. So even if the Commonwealth had a recommendation less than that jail time that's under the statute, a judge cannot give that to you. It would be an illegal sentence, and it just wouldn't be acceptable. Most commonly in the district courts in Massachusetts, we find these charges come up where things such as carrying a firearm has a minimum mandatory term of 18 months. An OUI, operating under the influence, third offense, has a minimum mandatory term of 180 days, but 150 days of which must be served. You cannot get out on parole or any early release or anything like that. And another one is driving on a suspended license if that license was suspended for an OUI, for a drunk driving charge. If that's the case, if you get caught driving on a suspended license for OUI, that's a minimum mandatory sentence of 60 days in jail. So it's very important when you have these cases. Oftentimes, these are the cases that go forward to trial because there's no other option. You can't lessen the brunt of what's headed to you. So you may take a risk, take the chance of taking it to trial to try to get a not guilty. That way, even if you get it guilty, you're still going to get the minimum mandatory, but at least you're taking a shot at not getting any jail time whatsoever. So that's basically what it is. It's the minimum mandatory or nothing. So it's either a guilty with that or a not guilty. And obviously, with the not guilty, you don't get anything. Just one other thought on the one of the charges that I just mentioned. The carrying of a firearm has an 18-month minimum mandatory sentence. There's also a charge, a different statute of possessing a firearm, which is still a serious crime, obviously. However, it doesn't have one of these minimum mandatory sentences. So what happens sometimes, well, what happens oftentimes is your attorney will try to have the Commonwealth amend the charge to a possession of a firearm rather than a carrying of a firearm, so you don't get that minimum sentence. So that's completely discretionary, however, up to the Commonwealth, up to the district attorney's office, whether they will amend that charge or not. There's no motion that you can file and have the court order them to change the charge. It's completely up to them. They look at things like if you have a minimum or no record, and they take sort of a totality of the circumstances under consideration when they make that decision, whether they will, in fact, amend the charge to something less than the carrying of the firearm. So you have to be very careful in those cases because they are jail cases for sure. There's no getting around that, with very few exceptions. So at Afford Law, we do practice criminal and family law throughout Massachusetts, and all of our fees are on a sliding scale. So we're trying to make ourselves as affordable as possible. We're trying to give voice to the hardworking men and women of Massachusetts. Please feel free to visit us at affordlaw.org. See what resources we have there for you. There's a lot of information that I think you'll find very helpful. While you're there, please feel free to book a free virtual appointment with me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on family law or criminal law questions in Massachusetts. At Afford Law, we're making justice affordable. Thank you.